Welcome back to Studio 5. Okay, the love is there, the commitment is there, but so are the kids. Any parent knows firsthand the relationship with your spouse changes once children step onto the scene. My next guest has a plan to help you take back your marriage even after the kids have taken over. Studio 5 contributor Dr. Matt Townsend says it's a fight, a balance that is worth it. Worth it?
Totally worth it.
Yeah?
It's essential, and it's going to happen. And when you're first in love, you may not know this, but you get all giggly, googly eyes, you're weird, you're chemically charged.
Your fingers start to do this.
You go like this, you twitch a lot. And you think it's just love, right? And it's just you two, and everything's about you two, and it's just, where do you want to go? I don't know, where do you want to eat? I don't care, and it doesn't matter. And two is great. That's a dyad, we call that in my world.
Yeah.
And then you introduce a third. And the third creates a triangle. And triangles are more stable in a way, so we don't tip over. That's why, like, stools have 3 legs.
Okay.
However, have you ever noticed when you were a little kid, 3 kids playing together might end up, 2 of them might work together and leave 1 out? Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of times your child will do the same thing.
Are you trying to scare me?
Yes. So let's say hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
You're about to have a baby.
Yeah.
Not about to, in months.
If someone was in a few months about to have a baby.
Your marriage is, what happens a lot of times is the mom might turn to the baby because the baby is going to demand attention constantly.
Sure.
And the man turns where?
He's the third leg of that stool.
Third wheel. Like, hey, can you run and get us food?
Yeah.
So eventually what happens is he might turn to his job, he might turn somewhere else. So kids can sometimes decrease marital satisfaction.
We joke about this all the time. My mom is preparing Mark.
Is she?
Yeah.
She's
Every time I check in, she'll say,
teacher.
What did you do tonight? I said, oh, we'll just go to a movie. And she's like, you know, when you have that baby, you're not going to be able to just pick up and go to a movie. It does change that dynamic. Do you think the question, spouse or kids, is a fair one to ask?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Because we do. That's what we do. And we'll get into all of that. But you got to decide right up front if you want the marriage or not. So all you got to do is basically just get back in. Get back in, recommit. We're going to make the marriage work. So as long as you and Mark sit there and say, we're in, we love each other right now. We'll spend a few months of weird awkwardness where we can't leave this baby, or we have to take him everywhere.
Yeah.
But eventually, we're going to get in our marriage and stay in our marriage, and we're going to fight for our marriage.
So it's not necessarily stating a priority.
Yeah.
It's just saying my marriage is up there and I'm in.
Yeah, because our tendency is to try to decide which one's more important. And for a little while, the child will be. But the problem is, the research shows marital satisfaction is like it's a reverse curve, right? So it's a smile. And we're always really happy over here when we first get married. We have all this happiness. And when the kids start coming, it starts to drop until the kids start leaving. And when the kids start leaving home, it starts to get better.
Really?
Isn't that sad?
Well,
but part of that is because we're measuring marriage satisfaction. Family satisfaction is soaring. So your family can grow. Marriages don't necessarily grow if you don't focus on them. So we're going to get back in. We're going to steal it and get it back.
You say part of establishing that balance is looking at the resources you have.
That's
what
right.
do you mean by that?
This is a really cool idea. There's only so many resources in life to make a relationship work, okay? Some of the resources are finite and some of them are infinite. Finite resources are resources that will eventually, you only have so much. They're going to go away. Things like time. You don't have all the time in the world. You don't have all the money in the world. You don't have all the energy. Your health, by the way, isn't an infinite resource. It's going to wear out and test you.
Right.
Patience isn't always infinite. It's a finite resource. And willpower, your will to get stuff done, actually goes down the later in the day that it goes. So your will to discipline a child is harder at night than it is in the morning. So because those are finite resources, you're going to run out of those. That's why most people are conflicted of who to choose, my husband or my children on the resources.
Yeah.
But there's another resource that's infinite that is key to all relationships. And the infinite resources are resources like love and commitment and trust. We can grow those to infinite amounts. They can continually get more and more abundant. Our appreciation can grow. So even though I don't have time to do everything for my children, I can still appreciate them, and I can still focus on growing appreciation in the time I have.
So the message here, focus on the infinite resources you have and
if you're
use
gonna
those.
grow them, focus on growing more of the infinite resources, because those are going to last forever, right?
Yeah.
The time is eventually going to wear out, but the memories of the infinite resources, love, safety, trust, appreciation, they'll go on forever.
In this context, in this conversation, you don't like the either-or mentality.
We do it all the time. So
Yeah.
is it either I choose my wife or I choose my husband, or I choose my children, and you can't choose both. sometimes the either or isn't a good choice. So there's a better thing I'd rather that you choose, which is the words when and how. So instead of asking either this one or this one, you might want to ask, when have I been able to manage both? How have I been able to take care of my husband while still growing my family and strengthening my family? When's a good time for me to spend time with my spouse, and when's the best time to spend time with my children? It might be after school is the perfect child time, and at 9:30 at night, it's the perfect spouse time. So start noticing when and hows instead of dichotomizing. The second you say either or, you're making a false argument because you can't choose. You have to do both. So if you're thinking either or, then you actually start usually doing either or.
There's a mentality you want us to wrap our own brains around when it comes to how we treat and view our marriage.
If your great-great-grandma handed down this incredible heirloom, this incredible, just whatever, a vase or a ring or whatever.
Priceless.
Priceless. How would you handle it? How would you treat it? How would we talk about it? Where would we place it? How would you protect it? Would you put it under lock and key at times? Would you make sure it wasn't just tossed around? Would you make sure it wasn't neglected and thrown? I want us to create heirloom marriages that our children can see that this is a priceless, precious thing that we are going to hand down. And I want at my funeral that my children are talking about my relationship with my wife, not just that we had a lot of money or that we did whatever. By the way, the money thing would be great too, don't get me wrong. I want my marriage to be seen as something that I hand down and that my children replicate. One family at a time, they get to replicate mom and dad's kind of sacred, just so important, essential relationship.
Not just a good goal, but a great legacy. I mean, then it becomes, that relationship becomes a legacy that shapes future generations.
And we also know that we've trained these future generations to stick in their marriages, to stay in them, and to fight for them. And we can still have our children and have a great life, but you'll never grow a marriage if you don't work on it. And I want to hand that down as part of the heirloom, part of the inheritance.
So well said, Matt. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brooklyn.
We are less than 2 weeks away from the big date night.
Big date night. So if you've kind of lost your marriage with the kids, get to the date night.
Yeah.
It's on Valentine's night, 7 o'clock. Go to datenightswithmatt.com. This is going to be a great one because we're teaching you the 4 commitments you need to re-inspire the love. We want to create a spirit back in the marriage, and this is where we'll talk a little bit about the heirloom nature of our relationships and how to make it stick. So go to datenightswithmatt.com. Best investment you'll ever have. We'll laugh, we'll cry. It's better than cats.
You haven't said that in a while.
I know.
It is fantastic. Get your tickets now. Thanks, Matt.
Greg.
All right, when we